Christy, thank you very much for coming to my show.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So have gone through your profile and I came to know that you are a senior database administrator.
I am.
So I can see you have quite a lot of experience in this. So I thought to tell about you and the work that you are doing to my audience. And I can also see that you are a Microsoft MVP.
I am. I recently got that in November. So that was really nice.
So can you please introduce yourself?
Oh, of course, yeah. So I'm Josephine Bush, and like you said, I'm a senior DBA. I work with SQL Server and Postgres, and I also work with those types of things like SQL in Azure and AWS and Postgres up in Azure and AWS as well. So I've been doing that for a while now. SQL Server a lot longer, but Postgres I've been working with for the last few years. So still building my skills there a bit more. And so yeah, recently I got MVP. That's mainly because the contribution, Microsoft they give for the contributions to the community. So I present at conferences and user groups. And I also run my own user group, which is the Boulder SQL user group. And I write books and articles or blogging and all kinds of good stuff. So lots of stuff I'm giving to the community. So I love doing that stuff. That's a lot of fun.
You are from Colorado.
Oh, Colorado. Yes, 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 exactly. Boulder, Colorado. Yes, where I'm located.
So, what made you to come into understanding database and work in database?
Oh yeah. So it was sort of accidental because I started long ago in web development and then I wound up moving to GIS. So it's like making maps, right? But what it was is all data. So it's all managing data. I didn't really realize at the time I started, right? So then I was managing databases and data. And then I kind of just morphed into being like a system administrator type. And then like about 10 years ago, I did the database thing, just like formally now database administration after that.
So, how much experience you have?
Oh, geez. Let's see now. Oh boy. Well, total tech experience is like almost 20 years now, but DBA is more like 10 or so years now with DBA specifically.
But you look so young.
Oh yeah, thank you. I know, right? I knew I was going to age myself when I started telling my experience, right? So yeah, thank you. So somehow I've kept my youthful appearance through all the stress of tech, right?
So, from past 10 years, you are into database. I'm sure you might have worked on different projects and different types of projects.
hmm Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot of stuff I've worked on. So I've worked at companies where we did, financial data or like specifically like credit card processing, which that was a very stressful environment, or alternative energy data type stuff, all kinds of things. Even when I was a DBA, I was still building applications. Even some of my jobs where I was building like a vacation request application, things like that. I was still doing that because I could, right? So I thought, well, a little fun, right? So yeah, so most recently I work at a place where we do energy data, like forecasting and stuff. So it's a lot of big databases, high transaction volume type stuff. So a lot of, multiple terabyte size databases and stuff. That's mainly what I do. So when I say like DBA work, I mean, because a lot of people in industry have different definition of what does a database administrator or database engineer or architect do. So I kind of go across a lot, but mainly I do like the reliability of the systems, so like you're backing up things or restoring things or having it be highly available or helping people with performance problems, stuff like that. So that's like mainly what my projects involve. It's like a lot of that keeping when people don't know you exist, then you're really doing your job really well because the database is not failing. Nobody has any complaints. So it's a little difficult because you wind up making it look like, oh, what is she really doing? because you're doing everything so well.
So what's your present responsibility?
So right now, so funny enough, I'm a single DBA at this giant company I work at. We're supposed to be hiring more people because some people left and we're kind of building things out. But so for now, I'm like the only one on call. I have an on-call rotation 24/7, right? And I maintain some like 135 database servers, so like SQL Server and Postgres that we still have on VMware, like on-prem. And then we have a lot of Azure SQL and Azure Postgres mainly, not so much AWS right now, but so that's it. So I just maintain everything. Like people need perms, people have problems, people need something deployed for their sprint. I built some new thing. They're like, hey, can you do so? Like, it's a really like for me, a lot of just helping people get all their things done and then making sure that everything's running smoothly, like backing up and everything's working right.
So how database plays a role in application development or deploying an application?
Right. So basically there's like the agile methodology, right? The developers are in the sprints and so they commit to like usually 2-week chunks of time where they work on application, and it may or may not involve the database, like changes to the database, because all the applications, of course, use the database. So otherwise, there's not much they can do. But sometimes they need things like they may need to come to us, the developers say, hey, I have a question about how I should structure this table or view or different objects in the database or how to do permissions. And then a lot of times then they're done with their sprint, they come and they say, hey, I need you to help put this change into production, since developers don't have access to that level, right? So that we have to facilitate. We're actually have tried to automate all that stuff, but it's difficult to automate database changes. So we wind up just doing it manually because there's not actually a lot of changes these days. So we're kind of lucky that we don't have that pressure.
Is it easy for you to maintain a huge data?
No, it's not actually. Well, so here's kind of the problem what we're encountering is, so so like for instance with development, if you build an application and you go, oops, I don't really like how that worked, and even though you built it years ago or you want to change it from last week, it's easy, right? Because, well, I shouldn't say it's easy because there is work, development is its own work, right? There's challenges, but if you want to change the code base, I mean, in the source control, it's easy. Whereas with a database, if you build it and you've done a poor job designing it for long-term use, you haven't set retention policy. So you just have billions and billions of rows now, and the table wasn't structured properly, like the columns or indexes in tables, right? Then you wind up having big, huge problems that you can't fix, that are very difficult, like queries start getting slower, performance on the whole server is bad. And so that's a big challenge with the database, so that you have to be very careful at the beginning to make sure how you're designing it so that you don't run into problems like 6 months, a year, or years from now. And so we're really dealing with a lot of those problems now.
So database for different application and application for different industries.
Mm-hmm.
So how you are able to adapt for different projects?
Oh, yeah. So, it's interesting, as being a DBA, it's kind of easy to go between different industries and projects because what you're doing as a DBA is more like standard. So when somebody's building an application, say for what energy or financial or whatever, you want to optimize it as much as you can. And so really what you wind up doing is similar techniques to do that, just for all different kinds. So actually, I feel like I'm very lucky in a DBA job because it's actually easy to change between industries, because the SQL Server or Postgres concepts, they transfer across all of the industries. So that's really nice.
So what you learned in this 10 years?
So what oh my gosh, I've learned so Well, I've learned to well, the number one thing I learned is that nobody's bleeding to death. So it's not like there's no need to panic. Panicking doesn't help, right? So the more you panic, the less likely you are to come up with any good thing. Like so I get called at 2 a.m. or something, and the first thing you don't do is panic, because you need to stay calm, and other people panic around you, and you just need to talk to them and say, hey, okay, what is going on? Because their app is broken, or their process, or whatever they need to do their job is broken, and I get their stress. Well, we have to just say, okay, come here, let's speak calmly about what's happening. So those are like the number one things, is like just, remain calm and communicative, right? Keep talking. But more technically, gosh, I've learned a lot. So my big area of expertise is auditing. I say this is auditing over the last, I don't know, maybe like 5 years now or more, maybe. I've had a big focus on auditing. So that's like if I had to say one thing I learned a ton about database administration, was the auditing portion. Like, what is everybody doing, and how important it is to know not necessarily everything everyone's doing, because that's a lot to know, because you can't do every select everyone does, right? So you say, is somebody changing something, or is somebody getting different perms? So you can then determine, did something break because of that change? So that was a big one. But I've learned so much over the years, right? So much stuff that is a long list. It'd be like, I could list out for like hours what I learned.
Is it, as a senior database administrator, can you say that it is possible to maintain 100% accuracy?
I'm sorry, what was that last part? I kind of cut out.
100% accurate performance?
Well, I think it's sort of difficult to get to, that kind of level. I think it's always like very varied, like how you can maintain performance in all different issues. So like my job is never boring, so I never know what I'm going to do on any given day, because there's always another problem, right? So it's difficult to say that you could get to that level, I think.
So what makes you think so much?
Yeah. Well, yeah, what makes me think? That could be a very deep discussion. So yeah. Well, I'm always, I'm a kind of, they say like a type A person, I guess, in America we say type A. So I'm sort of, overachiever type. So I'm always searching for, what's the best way we could do this? And my brain doesn't really turn off very easily. So I just wind up trying to come up with the best solution. But I'm trying to learn also, okay, there's not a perfect solution, right? There's like, this is good enough, we can get this right, instead of like, this is perfect, because I don't think anything ever is, really.
And the biggest problem that you solved?
Oh, geez, wow, yeah. Well, biggest, that's a good question. I don't know. Like the most problematic things are, well, the middle of the night things, probably, because we had, at my old job, we had a network operations center. So people work in the middle of the night, all night, and then they call you if there's something that goes wrong. And so one night they called me, so 2 a.m. on Christmas, which is very pleasant. So like a holiday, I want to be off, right? And it turns out that something is blocking this loading process. So this very highly critical, multi-million-dollar, we could lose tons of money processes in the middle of the night. And some process that got deployed to prod by a developer, well, I mean, we put it there, but we didn't know exactly what it would do. So it blocked, and then I had to, so Christmas Day, I wound up working in the daytime, and my husband's like, when are you going to be done working? Because I wanted to create a process that would look for this process running, this developer process. And if it'd been running for more than 5 minutes, and if it was blocking something else, I was going to kill it. And so I set up a job to do that. So it just ran like every 5 minutes to see if it's running and if it's blocking. So I never want to get woken up again at 2 a.m. That's probably not the biggest thing, but I felt like it's very critical because you want to make sure it's really that process and it's been running long enough and that it's actually blocking right so that you're doing all of this thinking of, so you're not killing someone else's process. You don't want to kill something that you need, right? So, but yeah, I've had to deal with bigger things maybe at my current job where we had this, you know how I say these billions and billions of rows of data and we didn't archive anything. So the table just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. And it's a little bit terrifying, quite frankly, because I don't know how long SQL Server's doing a really good job maintaining, like queries come in, we're indexed it, it's working, but it's a little nerve wracking. So I had to come up with a plan to partition the table so we could archive it. And it was a big, big project because a lot of things hit that table all the time throughout the day, loading data every 5 minutes and people querying it in this giant table. So that was a pretty huge project.
So in this 10 years, you saw the evolution of the technology.
Oh, sorry, that kind of cut out. Sorry.
In this 10 years of your experience and also 20 years of total technology experience, you saw the evolution of the technology and you saw the change that is happening gradually in the technology. So what you understood about database before 20 years and what is the difference that you are observing now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it changed a lot even in the last, few years or maybe 5 years or so because of the cloud with the cloud technologies like Azure and AWS. So that's the biggest change I've seen really. I mean, we used to have SQL Server. Yeah, we could have SQL Server on VM, like straight on a VM without any virtualization, right? Without VMware, for example, like way back. But then the much bigger change is the cloud now. So the cloud is, I always think that it's like good and it's good in some ways and bad in other ways. It's just different, right? So like things you can do with SQL Server, you may not be able to do in the Azure cloud with the Azure SQL, but then they have another flavor of SQL like managed instance, or you can put a VM in the cloud and there's just so many options now too. It feels like there's so many more options and like I said, some of it's great. Like sometimes I find the cloud to be, oh, this is so great, this way of doing it here, but then something else is more, oof, I don't like that as much as the old way, right? So, it's about, and then there's the whole push, right, to migrate from SQL Server on-prem to the cloud or Postgres. And this, the same thing, getting it into the cloud, which is very difficult. I found that I just actually did I just remembered, again, my Manning series, my Manning publications, I did a series on migrating SQL Server to Azure. So it's a 4-project series that it's just a workflow. It walks you through. It gives you a bunch of, steps and hints and like little tips and everything so you can get there. But I'll have to say it is difficult. And usually what we do where I work is we don't migrate whole databases, giant databases to the cloud because it can be difficult to get the compatibility, like what you have on-prem and all the things it's doing. Microsoft has told us that literally some of our servers have so much going on, so much IO and resource utilization that they're like, don't even put this in the cloud, which is funny because, they would want your stuff in their cloud, but they're just like, no, it's too big. So that's kind of the challenge is figuring out how you can get your current stuff into the cloud. So that's a big change.
Have you worked with AWS? AWS, you said about Azure.
Oh yeah, AWS. Yeah, the only one I haven't really used is Google Cloud. I haven't used a lot of their managed SQL type stuff or Postgres. Just Azure and AWS pretty much, yeah.
So what are your achievements in this 10 years?
Oh, sorry, what in the 10? I
Your
saw that. I heard
your
the 10.
your achievements, your uh, great things that you have done as a database admin.
Oh, as achievements. Yeah, okay, now I heard that. Okay. Thank you for repeating that. It just kind of cuts out a little. So really it's funny you asked that because my biggest accomplishments, I think, are actually outside of my DBA specific work because I write books, right? Like I wrote a book on SQL or database auditing. I'm thinking about writing a Postgres book now. I'm doing a proposal. We'll see. We'll see. And this series at Manning, doing this migration, right? And I love all the presenting that I do. So meeting a bunch of people in the community, like other MVPs, for example. And I just feel like it's funny. I feel like my biggest accomplishments bring me the least amount of money. So that's why I have to keep my full-time job, right? Because I need to pay my bills. So my biggest ones are really the books and the presenting and the running the group and all these ways that you can help the community get knowledge out to people. So like I feel like that's my biggest accomplishment.
You are the only person who is taking the responsibility of the database, uh, and also on the other part, you become Microsoft MVP, and
Mm.
also you are writing books about what you have learned. So you are a multi-talented. So how you are able to manage all these multiple things, one person
Mm.
doing different.
I know, right? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, for a while I thought that I was completely getting burned out. So what I do though is sometimes I have to take a break from different things. So what I will say to people out in the world is don't do two publisher contracts at the same time because that is definitely killer. I had two at once and that's too much, but one at a time is not bad. So really, I don't, I don't even know the best advice to someone else for this because what I do is I get into focus periods. So I go and say, okay, sometimes I don't feel like working on even my most exciting projects. So I think, okay, you're just going to set a timer for 25 minutes. Then you're going to see how you feel at the end of 25 minutes. And inevitably, I think, oh, I don't know why I didn't start this sooner because I just want to keep going. But what I do is I don't work too long either because if you get to where you're just working for hours on end, it creates this tension, in your body, your headaches and everything else start coming up. So I just try to break my work down into increment like an hour or so and take a break and then come, kind of break it up. And sometimes I get stuck. So that's why I usually have multiple projects, which sounds sort of overloading maybe, but that's why, because then I can switch to something else too. If I feel, okay, I'm stuck, or maybe I go over here. But then I also just take times where I think, okay, I'm just not going to present for the next month or so because I have some other things I'm working on, or I need to take a week or two off where I just don't work on anything computer. Like, so I try to protect my time off hours very carefully, like on the weekends and evenings so that I don't have to be on my computer. So it's kind of funny because my whole work revolves around the computer, but I'm kind of anti-computer off hours from work because I try to just get away and give the mind a break, right, from the tech. So it's kind of how I do that. I get away. I do other things like art or music, like I play instruments or I make art and just totally something else, right, to get your mind a break from the tech. So that's kind of how I deal with it.
So your job includes two different tasks. One is talking with computer and talking with people. So how do you explain about this?
So yeah, it's interesting because I do really enjoy the talking with people part, maybe even more than the computer part, right? So because I I don't really like just working in a void. So to me, it's nice. I have other DB, like friends outside of my work, out of my company, where I could say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this idea. Cause I'm just alone where I am right now. I don't have a lot of coworkers, people who know as much as DBA type stuff as me. So I just wind up kind of bouncing ideas off of them too, because I say, okay, I'm thinking of doing this thing. So tell me if I'm crazy, or say, I like having people poke holes in my plan, say, okay, here's my plan. And then they go, well, this thing, that won't work. And, I like having that interaction. I don't want to just type away in a dark room somewhere, like just on the computer, right? So I like that balance between doing heavy tech. I don't know if I'm good at balance. It makes it sound like I am, but I'm not really. I usually take on too many things and do too. My husband always says I never do anything halfway. But I try to balance, right? Interaction, tech, go back and forth. So you're not feeling like overloaded.
So many experiences as a admin, as a person who is working in database from long time. So any particular experience that you cannot forget?
Yeah, I think it's just mainly for me, I really feel like it's the connections that I form with the people I worked with on projects. I think that's like the number one thing that I always take away. I like all the knowledge, of course, and that's why I share it with people, to make their life, I hope, easier with what I've learned and put it out there. So I guess there would be two things, I suppose, then. It's like me sharing it with people to make their life easier. And then, sorry, again, again, I don't know. And then also, I think it would be like the connections. I'm amazed by how much more connected I am to the people I worked with on DBA teams than any other team I've ever worked on. So there's this bond that forms in the chaos and the stress of having to maintain these production cert, right? I mean, it's just like amazing that I stay in touch with practically everyone from my last job as a DBA. And then this job, say, like the DBA thing seems to be this like thing where you really bond over all your shared problems. So I really think that's important.
So what are those qualities of yours made you to be successful as a database administrator or database professional? And also,
Okay.
you got certification and you become MVP in database.
Yeah, I think I personally think, and my boss at my old job talked to me about this, and I never really thought about it till he mentioned it. But I think the number one thing is just an ability to look at a problem in like unique ways, new ways. Like, maybe you don't know the answer. Like, for example, at my old job, I didn't know PowerShell then, and there was a job that was broken, and I had no idea why. But I just started Googling and looking and like tinkering and like trying things, and I fixed it. And I did it pretty fast, and oh, this is exactly what you need to succeed as a DBA, is just this ability to just troubleshoot things on the fly. You don't even know how it works. So like, for example, last month, or like November-ish timeframe, I got called on a Sunday morning because there was a problem with the production server. Nobody could access it. And thankfully I had done something in the past to change the setting so I could still get in there and access it from this dedicated admin connection thing in SQL Server. And I had no idea how to fix it, but I was very comfortable because I thought, well, I'll just be able to figure it out. And I think that's really important, is just this, like I said before, right? The don't panic and don't get all stressed and freak out and think, oh, I can't fix this. I can't fix this, right? How am I going to do this? It's just take a deep breath and then just start Googling. Even me as super senior, I still Google things all the time. Like, God, I've never seen that before. This happens to me on a regular basis where somebody comes to me and says, this has happened. I'm like, wow, I've never seen that before. And I think they start feeling nervous and I say, no, 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 that's fine. That's fine. We can figure this out, right? It's that whole thing, like I mentioned before, where you're just like, okay, remain calm and just know you're going to figure it out somehow.
So, any particular problems that made you feel very scared?
Well, always the middle of the night ones are not a lot of fun because you've been sleeping and then you're woken up. And so then you wonder. I once had a VP say to me on the phone, how long is this going to take? And I said, well, I need to take the time to think about what we're going to do. So give me a couple of minutes so that I want to make the right decision. So I figured 2 minutes. Like I said before, nobody's bleeding to death. So I probably have a couple of minutes to think before I have to do something, right? Um, but yeah, I do always feel a little bit like, oh, I feel a little anxious when I see something I've never seen before, right? It's always that first reaction, I think. But then I also think, well, I figured it out stuff before, so I can figure this out too, right? It'll work out. And what's the worst that could happen? I mean, we probably could all get fired. There's that, or the company could lose big customers. And I don't want those things to happen. But I just try not to think in terms of that. So I just think, okay, like the problem at hand, right? And just deal with that and just like step by step. And then, what I love to do is as I'm going, a lot of times I'm like typing really quick on the side, documenting, okay, what I did step, because I want to know for later, but I also want to know so I can share with other people, like so I can blog about it or write, an article or a book or something later so people don't have to go through digging around like I did, trying to piece together what I pieced together. And now I share it out to the world. So that's I'm waiting for another problem always so that I can share my solution with the world.
You came to a stage where you can tell to people what to do and what not to do, and you learned this from your experience. So, what kind of mindset that you believed or you understood that is very important as a senior database administrator or any person who is working in database?
Yeah, I think it's really this kind of what I talked about before is not only the things I mentioned, like where, you just try to, I guess it's sort of like self-compassion and compassion for others. So everybody's stressed and feel, people are feeling stressed because like if an application's down or clients are complaining or somebody can't do their job. And so I always approach that with there's a level of urgency. I don't just say, oh, well, somebody's not bleeding, so disregard that. But I just say, okay, just explain to me everything that you can and then I can help you. And so I think it's that calm demeanor, like to keep but I'll admit when I don't know something and I say that, but I say, we're going to figure it out together or something. We're going to get this solved. So I always think one of the most important things you can do is to just be honest, but like in a calm way, not like, oh my God, freak out because I don't know what I'm going to do, but keep your tech skills up, right? Because that's the other part of it is that I like to stay on top of new tech, like new database, like, with SQL Server, new version or in the cloud or whatever's coming to see what else you can do. There's like SQL Server Central I follow all the time with blogging. I actually this is nice getting my blog syndicated out there too. So hopefully I can reach more people and, just keep current and always I love learning. I just sort of do it. It's like a hobby thing now, even for me. So I love learning new things. So if you're always looking for, well, always sounds kind of exhausting, but you regularly learn new things and try to find solutions to your problems, and just try to think outside the box, right? I think that's my biggest advice is like, keep learning and keep calm, kind of like, two things together.
So, coming out from you as a technical person, just as a normal human being, have you ever thought that who created this database and why we are working and what is going on?
Well, you know what I do think about is who created this model where we are all on call all the time and everything became super urgent more than the database. Because I get the database thing because we have all this information. We've got to store it somewhere logically and be able to retrieve it quickly. And so I get that. But then I really drives me nuts is when people are so frantic about this thing is down and this thing isn't working and this is not fast enough and all that. I remember one day as an example, I was out shopping and I have more than one card I can use, right, to pay for things at the store. And one of the credit card companies was down. They were literally like completely down, like a big credit card company. And I couldn't pay with that. So that's why I always have a backup because I know tech, right? There's always something going to break eventually. And so I just used my other card. I didn't even call the company. They were just like, I looked online and I saw they were down and I was like, well, I'm not going to call and say, why is this broken? Because they must already know. and like how I handle requests at work, when I need something, I always tell my coworkers, okay, like let's work together to see like when can you fit this in. And sometimes if I'm getting pressure from somebody else, I'll say to this other coworker I might need help from, like on another team like DevOps or some other team in IT, I say, okay, well, this person's kind of pressing on me and they feel it's very urgent, but I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you. So if we can just work out like when's the soonest you can do, because I don't want to be that person who's all like frantic, panic. Oh my God, I need this right now because I don't like dealing with that person if they come to me, right? So yeah.
Do you relate the database tables that you create with the general things that are not connected with IT in order to understand and solve or fix the issue?
Yeah, I mean, I work with, so where I work now, I don't deal a lot with like the data and the tables and stuff because that's sort of, we like managing the server around it and all the processes and everything that go into making the server available and, you know, it's reliable and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I have to admit that I do love solving problems. So when people come to me with a problem of any kind, like how tables relate or like, why is this not working the way they expect or something, I'm always excited to help out and just this sounds kind of crazy because I always thought I didn't really like chaos, but then I like the nature of my job where it's like, I don't even know what I'm going to do when I come to work in the morning. I have an idea of what I want to work on, but I don't even know because somebody's going to come to me with some problem that I didn't even know about. And then I'm going to wind up helping them pretty much. Right. So
Like you said, sometimes it is important for you to work in your night time. So at that time, how your logical thinking works and how you are able to, how much time you take?
Yeah, so thankfully, I would say like knock on wood here because I don't want to jinx myself that it doesn't happen too often now. My old job happened a lot more. The thing is, the way that you feel comfortable in the night dealing with things is directly related to how much you actually push yourself to learn and get involved in the day-to-day DBA things in the day so that when you see something at night, even if you've had to be woken up, your mind is used to dealing with these kinds of problems. So like there's things where there's a website where a person will walk you through how to corrupt your database and then how to fix it. Or, you know, you want to challenge yourself. You want to go and so like you want to fill, so on SQL Server, there's a tempdb. So that's like a temporary space where queries will get used by SQL Server to like, they have some space to do things like, return results of queries and things. So if that fills up, you can't access SQL Server. Now, maybe you want to fill it up yourself, like not on the production server, but on your own little test server. So what I recommend to people is like you go through and you break a test SQL Server or Postgres. You try to break it and then you try to fix it, and then it'll make you more comfortable in those off-hour situations because, it's difficult when you wake up in the middle of the night or you get called at like right before you're going to go to bed, you're tired. So yeah, you want to make sure that you practice. Like you think, being a pilot is far more complicated than being DBA, but they go into simulators and they practice that. I once sat next to a pilot who was not flying the plane, but sitting next in the passenger. And so I asked him 50,000 questions. He was probably like, oh gosh, when is it going to be over? But he was very nice about it. And he said, look, we all practice. If something happens, like the engine dies and then, you lose cabin pressure and all these different scenarios, he's like, we practice all that stuff, right? So I highly recommend people figure out all the ways that your database server, or as many as you can, could break, and then practice fixing it in a test environment. So that way you feel comfortable.
So what advice you give to me? I'm a DevOps engineer.
Oh, DevOps engineer. So like just in general or about databases? You want database advice?
Yeah,
Okay,
because you are
database.
an expert.
Okay, database advice. So I would just say, especially I know DevOps engineers where I work that want to get more into the database space. So this is perfect for me to formulate for them. So really, I think that the main things you would need to know if you want to just get some basic troubleshooting like DBA type stuff, how you would connect to the different databases. Maybe you don't need to know how to set them up, but since you maybe don't have a test environment, you set up your own database servers, you go in there and you connect and you just start, because I think the best way to learn is to just do, right? You can read stuff and watch videos and so on. I'm sure I could come up with recommendations for people to do that kind of stuff. There's a really good, Brent Ozar is huge in the SQL Server database world. And he has this great plan for if you're a new DBA, this is what you do. He's amazing. So if anybody wants to learn SQL Server, especially, he has all kinds of amazing resources. He has I think it's like a 6-month plan or something. Here's what you learn over this time, and he'll send you emails, and there used to be a document at least. And so that I would highly recommend. But I know a lot of times people are not necessarily doing the traditional SQL Server. So then you have Azure. So, gosh, there's tons of resources for Azure stuff, doing Azure SQL or management. And I think you can sign up for Azure, and you get a $200 credit or something. So you can go around and mess in there. And some of it's cheap, or like AWS, I think some of theirs is even cheaper. So I just highly recommend you just start clicking. This sounds like crazy, but it's in a test environment. You just start clicking things, and then you start seeing, what you learned from, all this clicking. That's a lot of times that's what I do still. Like I said, when I don't know something, I start reading a little article and I'm like, well, I'm bored reading that. So I'm just going to start clicking over here because it's harmless when you're not in production, right? You don't have to worry you're going to blow something up. So you just start clicking around and create things and start using it. That's kind of my advice.
I love what you say, and you'll be the reason for the success that I get.
Thank you. Well, I hope so. Or my advice is terrible and I blow up all your plans. So.
Apart from database and technology, what you like?
So yeah, usually my list of hobbies makes people anxious. So I like so much stuff. So I play musical instruments. So I played cello since I was 8. I don't play it as much, but I play piano and some other wind instruments, and I do art I say collage, but it's kind of found paper art from magazines and other stuff. I cut and make into on paper, into different images and things. And I don't know, what else do I like? Read and stuff. I love reading. So yeah, it's my big things, but that's kind of the main things that I do a lot of.
Do you have any particular project that you want to work on?
Like in my real life, just regular
Yeah,
project, not related to tech.
not related to tech.
Okay. Yes, I'm actually, this is like, sometimes people ask me, what? Why are you do that? So I'm learning Irish, the Irish language. So I actually would like to spend more time doing it, but I sort of get distracted by all my other hobbies and projects. But so that is actually a huge thing that I want to do more of. But I'm nervous to speak to other people in Irish because it feels so awkward. So like in English, it's easy for me, right? But then Hannah I don't know any other language, so it's hard. So you must know more like what it's like, because when you're like learning different, you must know more than one language, right? So then you have to learn like, does it feel weird when you first starting, right? To talk to somebody in different language than
Uh,
you're used to, right? It's uncomfortable.
yeah, what I feel is like, when you started, even English is the language that you have learned. In the same way,
Yeah,
every language is same. The words, you need to understand the meanings of the words that you use, and
right,
also the sound that you have to do when you are talking Irish.
right.
And not
It's
not
hard.
not a big thing. It's not hard.
It's
It
not hard.
comes
It's
with
not
it.
hard.
It comes with the
But
practice, like you say, like you
yeah.
do in your tech.
You're right. You're right. And I need to, that's the thing is I don't spend as much time as I need to because I'm doing all these other projects. So the hard part is listening because like if I was not a native English speaker, it'd be hard for me to have this conversations. It'd be very hard to understand what the other person said. That's where I get stuck. Is the understanding what somebody else is saying to me. And I'm sitting there, just sitting, thinking about what they said, trying to figure out what they said. So I just have to practice. You're right. I have to practice more.
And why, what you are writing in your books about database?
Oh, yeah. So the database. So I had the books I already wrote are the SQL one. And that was a whole SQL covering the SQL language from MySQL perspective and then comparing it to Postgres, Oracle, and SQL Server. So, and it used all baseball data. So like in America, the baseball, there's a ton of data, right? So there's a lot of data you can use cause the publisher wanted me to tell a story with data, show people how to tell a story with data. So that's in there too. That was the best part of the book, by the way, cause you can tell a story with your data. Like why does a first baseman get paid more than the rest of the team, right, in baseball? So I did that in that book. And then I did the database auditing book, right? So that covers all the stuff about this auditing thing, which my husband always asks me, do you really love auditing? And it's like, well, I love knowing when people change things and then you go to them and ask them, why were you doing that? And then they were like, I feel like they're like looking behind them, like, how does she know what I was doing? So I covered like SQL Server and Azure and AWS, like SQL. It was no Postgres auditing in there, but I do have some stuff in presentations and stuff and on the side for Postgres. But, and then I told you about that Manning project, those projects. That's not really a book, but it's more like a workflow. And who knows? Maybe I'll be writing a Postgres book soon, but that'll be more like geared toward using Postgres in the cloud. Like how do you use it in Azure and AWS and Google Cloud, and how do you put it in containers? So like Docker and Kubernetes, like that kind of stuff with Postgres. So that might be coming. I don't know. That's sort of not firm. It's not for sure.
So with your experience in technology and also in database, how the future is going to be when it comes to database?
Well, I think there's been this concern that people won't need DBAs anymore, which I think is not correct. I think people um, have thought you could just like click some stuff in the cloud, especially, you could set things up, but just like you could mess up stuff on-prem with these giant billions of rows table. Like this one table I mentioned has like 23 billion rows of data in it now, and it's very, it's very unwieldy. It's very hard to use. Well, it's going to be very I'm just waiting for the day when that doesn't work. I hope it's never. But, so you still have to be careful when you create click, click, click in Azure. It's so easy. It is easier in the sense that you can just create a database and then you can have high availability with it by clicking some more, a lot of clicking, right? And so it's easy in the sense that, yeah, it's there, but is it really set up in a optimal way that's sustainable? Like you can keep using it for a long time from now and you won't have problems. So I feel like the DBA landscape has changed in that regard because you really have to have that cloud experience, but a lot of it's even transferable. Like when you create a table, how are people going to query the table? How long are you going to keep the data? When you have a table, you want to index it so people could actually get the data out of it and stuff. And that all is the same. I mean, you're still going to want to do all that same stuff. So I feel like people can feel comfortable that it's not, I think, I know a lot of companies want to save money and they try to like make DevOps engineers, for example, into DBAs or software engineers into DBAs. And I really think that's not the best plan, especially for a really large enterprise that, when you have a business that heavily relies on your database being reliable, it's going to be hard in the long term if you don't actually have a database specialist on your team to help you. So I'm a little concerned with that, but my company, thankfully, they're coming back to DB, we have a team we're building, so that's good. I feel like, okay, phew, but I don't know in the long run what will happen because I do think a lot of companies are still thinking, oh, well, maybe we could get away from having a DBA or a database engineer could do that or a database architect could do it or something. And we recently had a conversation at my company where I was explaining to my VP, hey, I think there should be a principal DBA because like principal engineer and principal architect, those are kind of doing different things because like a DBA is the person you like call in the middle of the night who can fix anything that you run into, whereas an architect and engineer, they may not have that level of comfort. So anyway, he was very receptive to that. So I was very pleased by that, so that's why I stay where I do because my managers and coworkers are very, very pleasant to work for. I think that's so important. I know that's kind of a segue to something else, but I think like one of the most important things at work is like who you're actually working with. I get that I don't want to be doing something really tedious and that I don't like as my job, but when you have coworkers that are pleasant and your managers are very accommodating, they're trying to understand you. You don't always agree, right? But they're trying to understand. We're trying to understand each other, and like that's very positive to me.
Have you worked on artificial intelligence projects?
I have not. Well, funny enough, you say that. I have a master's degree in data analytics, but I actually never really use it, and I don't really do any of the like business intelligence or artificial intelligence type stuff work because I'm very busy with maintaining all the database server type stuff, right?
And what do you say about ChatGPT?
What DB was that?
Yeah, the recent one, which is related to AI. If you have idea, ChatGPT.
Oh, like the chat. Oh, the chat one. Oh, yeah. I only used it briefly, but a DBA friend of mine was laughing about how well it was explaining all the SQL Server concepts to him. Although he did something and he Googled it, he chatted with the AI and then he sent me what it said. And I said, well, that's wrong and that's wrong and that's wrong. But the AI got most of it right, actually. Funny enough, it was pretty close. Do you think an AI is going to replace all of us IT people? Like little AIs will be doing all of our work in like 10 years or less. Maybe.
Actually, you should give this answer because you have a lot of experience already in technology. You saw the evolution of technology, how fast uh,
Hmm.
it changed. You will have answer more,
Maybe,
more than.
maybe. I don't, well, yeah, that's a good point, maybe. Yeah, well, I know this thing about, they talk about self-driving cars and people kind of freak out about that, especially like older people. And they're like, I'm not having some robot, like some AI driving my car, right? But then I read an article where they showed that within like a 20-year time frame, you went from like mostly horse and carriage on the road to almost all cars. There was like one photo from like 20 years before, it was like all horse and buggy, and then one car, and then you go 20 years further and it was like all cars except one horse and buggy. So like 20 years from now, we'll probably have like self-driving cars and AIs being database administrators. I don't know. I hope not, but
So one
either,
of the yeah, go on.
no, fine. I was going to say either that or the AI decides that humans don't deserve to live anymore and we just kills us all off, like some kind of science fiction movie. And we don't even have to worry because we're not even here. We're just gone. That's the doom and gloom version.
One of the main reasons I took DevOps is automation, and what I believe as a technologist, as a person who is into technology from past few years, what I understood is human always wants things easier and faster.
Hmm.
So maybe that is possible if you ask me that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, well, it's true. But if humans want everything easier and faster, and then the AI decides that we're too slow, and then the AI says, "Oh, hey, I'll just, you know what? Let's just kill off all those humans because they're so slow." And they wanted fast anyway, so AI is faster and better. So now AI says, "Oh, we'll just kill them all off, and it'll be better here." It was just the AI.
So you
That's
should not, as a project owner, you should not give the admin rights to the AI to do it.
I know, right? Right. But then the AI figures out how to get around my restrictions, right? Because the AI then becomes a hacker, black hat, and it gets into your system anyway, right?
And
It's like a total movie.
you need to hire again a cyber security AI to protect yourself from
Oh,
it.
you're right. I need my own AI. And I better treat my AI really nicely so
Yeah.
that my AI stays committed to me and doesn't go over to the other side of the other AI. And they become friends. And then they say, oh, let's kill her. Because it's better over here. My AI runs and goes over to the other AI side.
So
Well, I don't know.
that's a great thing that you said, and also as a person who is into technology and also working on database from long time, what is your observation about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
Oh, I saw some of your videos. Yeah, you have a different hairdo now, though. I remember, like I like the blonde hair, yeah, that was cool. And yeah, no, I like your videos because you're asking very good questions, And people were saying that too, right? That you ask the very good questions. So yeah, I'm very impressed by your videos because you had tons of good questions. I need to hire you to be an interviewer for my new DBA candidates. I totally could just like have you interview them without like you could just totally interview them. You ask really good questions.
That's a great compliment from a senior database administrator for me. So definitely, if you give me an opportunity, definitely I will do that.
Okay,
And
yeah, yeah, totally. I can totally see you being this amazing, like, I mean, you are an interviewer now, so you could totally interview my tech candidates. Yeah, totally. If you ever need another career on top of your current career, right?
yeah, there's my last interview was with AWS Cloud Vice President.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's really cool. Yeah, I never heard of you before, and I get this random message on Twitter, and I thought, who's this guy? So I look, though, I make sure to look at all my messages because you never know. And you're like, yeah, you're amazing. I looked at it, I was like, wait, this guy is totally legit. At first I thought, who is this random person? Because like sometimes you get these weird chats saying, hey, I wanted to help you make like $20 an hour doing some random thing you never, and so I was like, oh, this is totally legit. Yeah, it's amazing.
I did masters in software engineering, also bachelor's
Okay.
in computer science and engineering. Right now, I'm getting trained as AWS cloud DevOps engineer. Right now,
Oh, okay.
in next 3 months, I'm going to complete my projects, training projects. So
Oh,
I'm
nice.
into, yeah. So with this technical background, so I'm taking interviews of experts who are already in the industry, who are working on different projects, who are solving different problems, and who are from different parts of the world. I'm interviewing them and I'm asking them questions, how they are doing it, how they made things possible, what is their experience like, whatever the questions that I asked you, I asked
Mhm.
different people, also not only technical people. I'll go to non-technical people like filmmakers, police officers,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
authors.
it's good. Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
so how this experience is going to be helpful for me talking with people like you who are already in the industry and did so many things in their experience, learning from you people how I'm going to use this knowledge if I work in
Hmm.
IT in coming days.
Right. I feel like, well, I wonder, I will ask you a question. Like, what's your long-term plan? Is this like to get just, I mean, not just, that sounds like, but to do a specific IT job? I mean, with what you're doing with all the interviewing, this is like, it's its own legitimate enterprise, so to speak. Like you're building your brand and a business potentially interviewing people, right? I mean, you're learning from the people too, but I'm just curious, like, is there like a long-term plan to build more of this interactive part or to mainly do more IT work, like actual be a software engineer or DevOps engineer as a job?
Yeah, I want to take that as a full-time work,
Okay.
like that as an Irish language that you're learning. That I want to put
Okay.
in that way. I want to put interviews.
Okay. Okay. I hear you. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like how I present at conferences for little to no money or groups, and then I still have my job. I mean, that's kind of, yeah, I hear you. That makes a lot of sense. But
I'm not making money
you've
with
got a
it.
ton of interviews though. I mean, you've got way more interviews than I have any presentation. So that's really impressive. It's an amazing portfolio that you have with all these interviews, really.
There are so many interviews coming next in this year.
Really?
My calendar is filled.
Really? Right. So how often do you do these? Is it like every day or
It,
multiple a day
dep-
or?
it depends. Today I have two interviews. One is you, and next one is another person. So sometimes I'll have three, four, five. Sometimes
Oh,
only
wow.
one, like
Oh my
that.
gosh. Wow. That is so impressive. That's really impressive. So, but it's the middle of you're in India. Are you in India?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. I
uh,
thought so from all your description. Okay. Because it's the middle of the night there.
yeah. It's 2 a.m. here.
Okay. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
trying to pick a time that wasn't like too late or too early because I thought, guys, he's in India and you're so accommodating with the time. And I thought, it's still so late though. Oh, do
so
you
I
just,
got habituated. I got habituated with this global interviews. Some Irish person will come in other time, or
oh
some
yeah,
UK person, or from
right.
European, Sri Lankan. Like I did more than 100 plus countries. So I don't
Oh
know
wow.
at what time I need to wake up. I need to
Oh
sleep.
my
I don't know.
gosh.
Like your
Oh
job.
wow. Oh, I know, because I saw your schedule is like 24-hour, like the whole thing is just open on the certain days.
Yeah.
I noticed you hopefully take a couple days off every week for your
Yeah.
sanity, for
Yeah.
health. Okay. But wow, so then when you're done, you cut out my coughing, I hope. But like, how do you edit all this stuff? I'm just curious because I edit videos for my group. I'm just really curious. If you have a minute, how do you edit everything?
I do in my iPhone. I'm doing this in my iPhone 11.
Oh, oh, you
I'm
do all
going
on the
to,
iPhone?
yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
almost, yeah, it's almost going to die. I'm using this for 2 years, like doing massive work, only editing,
On your
everything.
iPhone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's impressive. Wow, because
Yeah.
I have a Mac because I can't stand doing things on my phone so much. Wow, that's even more impressive that you did it all on your iPhone. Wow. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, well, I definitely want to stay in touch with you and like any way I can help, if you want to know anything more about database stuff, I can send you links or other stuff if you're interested in learning more about data or things that I find useful because I know I mentioned some things, but if you want, I'll send you some links too.
Definitely, I will. You're a very busy person. Uh, I will definitely ask you any questions if I have in database.
Yeah, for
Also,
sure. Always feel free to hit me up. I mean, really, honestly, I'm not that busy. I look very busy, but I always want to, that's my main thing is like, I want to help people. So if you need any information, then I'm happy to give it to you.
and like you said, if there is an opportunity, if I can do justice for this, and if you believe that I'm going to do something for that and add value to that, I'll be available.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. 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 It's a great idea. I'm sure you could add value wherever you go, like whatever job you get. I'm sure you will because I can tell from interview, you ask really good questions. So I'm sure that you're a great addition to any company that will hire you, quite frankly. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that's
And
fine.
also,
Yeah.
can I put this video and audio clip on my podcast website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yeah, yeah, you can put it wherever you want. It's fine with
Uh,
me.
you want to share your social media presence or your websites or your books to my podcast listeners and to my viewers?
Yes, I would like to. Yes, if you want to share all that stuff. Do you need links from me? Anything else that
Yeah, you can
if you
send me the links. I'll put in the description as well as on the screen. Can you spell it to my podcast listeners?
to, wait, what was
Any,
that? Was that?
can you spell it to my podcast listeners? Anything that helps your books or your
Oh, yeah, like so like specific examples of things like my books. Like the SQL database programming, that one,
yeah.
and practical database auditing is another one, and migrate SQL Server to Azure is another project. It was like the series I mentioned. So those are the ones that I have that are out there now. You can get the books on Amazon and you can get the series on Manning. So Manning.com is the publisher for that. So those are the three that I have out now. Oh, and my blog is SQL as SQL Kitty. So it's SQLKITTY.com. So that is where I'll put up anything, that I've been working on that's not like a whole book kind of thing. So it's just a kind of one-off of issues I've encountered and solutions I have for those kinds of issues. So that's out there too for people.
I'm
Oh,
sure.
and that website has other stuff like where I'll be presenting or where I've presented, and there's links to different. So if you're not interested in buying an entire book on auditing, I do have links to videos like I've done on auditing Azure SQL or auditing SQL Server, things like that, and Postgres. Those things are all on my website too on the SQLkitty.com.
Definitely, it will help a lot of professionals, also people who are connected to me. Definitely, it will solve a lot of problems because your experience means a lot to a lot of people who are working on database. And also, I will go through it. Also, I'll see what I can learn from it.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah. Hopefully it's helpful to people. That's why I put it all out there. So I'm hoping that it helps. Yeah. I always say this at the end of my presentations that I'm always happy to have conversations about what I put out there. So people want to hit me up on Twitter. I'm actually Hello SQL Kitty because somebody else had SQL Kitty and they don't even use it. So anyway, on Twitter, I'm Hello SQL Kitty. So you can always feel free to hit me up there, or I have email too, like hellosqlkitty@gmail. So it's kind of all on the same thing. But yeah, so any people feel free to hit me up with questions because I'm always happy to talk about and help people out because I know that we need to all help each other in this world, right? And be kind. And so I'm happy to help people, and hopefully that's good.
You already did. Thank you again for giving me opportunity to talk with you and also letting me ask few questions and also giving your valuable time.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me again. I really appreciate it. It was very nice to talk to you, and I'd love to stay in touch.
Thanks, Josephine. Keep doing what you love.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.